What's up guys, David Sherwack here. Today I'm going to be reviewing HELLMODE by Jeff Rosenstock. Now this is a ska punk album from singer-songwriter Jeff Rosenstock. It's his 9th studio album and this is personally my first time ever listening to his music. This thing comes in at a tight 41 minutes and it doesn't waste any time throwing us into the chaos. We start off with maybe the most catchy song on the album. This is Will You Still You. Definitely my favorite track on the album. The instrumental on this track is absolutely killer. It features probably the most finesse out of any instrumental on the album. The off-kilter interplay between the punchy snares and the blaring guitars is exciting. This eventually coalesces into kind of an insistent and pounding instrumental that makes it feel like the band is just going to break their instruments at any moment. This then beautifully transitions into a summery passage with some pristine bells moving along at sort of a whimsical pace with this kind of beautifully intricate guitar solo as well. This track is varied instrumentally, but each phase of it is equally exciting. I feel like there's definitely some My Chemical Romance influence on this track with just how grandiose and theatrical it is. This track then perfectly transitions into track number 2, and I kind of see track number 2, which is titled Head, as a direct continuation, so these are kind of sister tracks, I guess you could call them. This track does a great job of carrying the momentum of the first track forward. This track is short, but it really packs a big punch. It's carried by Jeff's animated vocal delivery and an instantly memorable chorus. There's a bomb, it's on my head, and I wish that I could disconnect the thread. This track is basically a musical portrayal of Jeff's mindset. It really throws us into the unhinged kind of chaotic themes of this album. These two tracks introduce us to Jeff's self-aware, somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but also intensely sincere writing, which is really what grabbed my attention on the first listen of this project. Going further into the project, at track number 3, we get somewhat of a ska banger, I guess you could call it. It's got the classic ska guitars on the 2 and 4, a shouty chorus. It's got a great combination of abrasive and playful keys, and while I do feel like it is one of the more one-dimensional tracks on the album, I just can't deny how fun and catchy it is. However, the next few tracks are where this album kind of hits somewhat of a lull. On Doubt, we get some lyrics in the first 2 verses that just feel a little bit too on the nose for me. While the lyrics in these 2 verses do tie in pretty nicely to the themes on the rest of the album, they just feel a bit too obvious and it feels like Jeff could dive into these ideas a little bit more deeply. However, the sound of this track is an interesting switch up for the album. It does kind of have an emo / indie feel. It has a more subtle vocal delivery from Jeff, which makes it feel like a nice breath of fresh air on the album as well. And while I do feel like this track does take a little bit to get going, the full point of the track really comes into view as the instrumental and as Jeff himself kind of digresses into insanity. It's kind of like those paintings with a bunch of dots that only make sense when you view them from really far away. Up close, you can't really tell what you're making out, but once you back up, you get the full image and it makes sense. That's something that could be said for a lot of these tracks too. A lot of them progress like a story. This track is maybe the most potent example of that. So while I do think the beginning of this track is a little bit uneventful, I think it somewhat saves itself with how it finishes. Another track that isn't one of my favorites is Future is Dumb. I think it's the least interesting instrumental on the album. It has some cool production moments, however, like the delay on the guitar riffs around the 120 mark of the song. But overall, I just feel like it lacks excitement and color and energy. However, the lyrics and Jeff himself somewhat save this track. The lyrics seem to be focusing on the meaningless nature of the past, the present, and the future, and really highlighting a sense of feeling lost. And also that the chaos he's experienced, to him, it feels like it's just going to be infinite. It's not going to change. There's almost a tragic acceptance to this idea and that there's just nothing he can do about it. So lyrically, I think this track really stands out. Instrumentally is where it just kind of falls a little bit flat for me. And then the lull kind of continues with Soft Living, which is admittedly my least favorite track on the album. I just can't really get down with the vocals here. They are so drawn out and just so uninteresting melodically to the point where they kind of ruin a actually somewhat decent instrumental. There's a really nice growly bass on this, and the mix is really crunchy and satisfying. Each section of this track really flows together seamlessly as well, but again, those vocals just kind of ruin it. We start picking things back up with track number 7, Heal Mode, which is kind of a breath of fresh air on the album, a calmer moment on the album, a moment of serenity amidst the storm that is portrayed in the lyrics, but also the storm that is the rest of the album as well. This is a track where I kind of see Unicorn's influence coming through, more so just in the vocal delivery of Jeff. It's kind of got that boyish vocal delivery that reminds me of the Unicorn's vocalist. And this is an acoustic track where the songwriting really needs to pull through, and it mostly does. Now, I do think this instrumental would benefit from being kind of a more interesting acoustic guitar riff. It just gets kind of repetitive, and it's not all that rhythmically or melodically or harmonically interesting. But like I said, the songwriting here really does stand on its own. And then we get on to Life Admin, which is really where Jeff's humor comes through. It's been a weird day for me. I don't think it's been a good day for you, and I want to make the rest of it less devastating. Trying to get boba, but they keep me waiting. There's just some hilariously self-aware lyrics on this, just kind of embracing the kind of small inconveniences that might seem insignificant to others, but are very significant to him. And that's a big part of this album as well, is just kind of laughing in the face of your own pain. This album doesn't take itself too seriously all the time, which is really refreshing. A track that does take itself seriously, though, is I Want to Be Wrong. The speed of this track is insane. The politically charged lyrics are really striking, and there's a great punk energy to this track as well. There's also just like a great tempo increase at the midpoint of this track with a killer synth line that comes in. This is one of my favorites. It's a banger. Then the album finishes off with two really strong tracks. First off, Graveyard Song. This is maybe the most outwardly kind of tormented track, where the state of the world and the chaos is really seeming to affect Jeff. This instrumental has a really anthemic feel to it as well, and especially that kind of anthemic guitar solo at the end really drives home the messaging in the lyrics here. And then we finish it off with a long track, Three Summers, which I believe comes in at 7 minutes. This track is amazing. It is a intense, tension-filled build to start things off that reaches a surprising key change, modulation, spoilers, I guess. But yeah, it reaches a point that I wasn't expecting at all. Lyrically here, he seems to be struggling with some cognitive dissonance. He's kind of aware of his flaws, but he also just wants to be young and let his frustrations out. There's kind of an acceptance on this track that things aren't going to be perfect, and it's a really fitting way to end this album. A somewhat sad, but also strangely kind of hopeful way to end this album as well. So yeah, this album starts off strong, it finishes strong. It does somewhat hit a lull in the middle point there, but overall, I think this is a really solid offering from Jeff Rosenstock. Are there moments where the instrumentals lack color and just feel a little bit flat? Yes. Does the track list fall a bit short of reaching the excitement and instrumental finesse of the first track? Also, yes. But all in all, this is a great and varied enough album that really brings us into Jeff's depiction of a chaotic world. And through Jeff's humor and wit, it feels like we should just kind of be embracing this chaos. The instrumentation does a great job of matching these lyrical themes, as the guitars range from abrasive and distorted to whimsical and playful, kind of highlighting that juxtaposition. And Jeff finds the perfect sweet spot between not taking himself too seriously while also coming across as sincere and genuine. While I don't think it's a perfect record, it is one of the better albums of 2023, and it certainly provides some fun jams that I definitely see myself coming back to. So there you go. Those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on this album down below. And yeah, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.